I'm very much of a mixed background because technically I'm an adoptee. Birth family are mixed. There's Catholic Irish, there's Gypsies, Travellers, Italians. There's a big line of Welsh, a big line of Scots, some people from Germany and France, and also some people who are Caribbean in the family. So quite a big mix-up. Got brought up in a standard British adoptive household. And basically what happened from there is just went to comprehensive schools. Didn't do very well at school because at that point nothing was diagnosed. You're talking here about the 1970s and 80s. And in the 1970s and 80s, you got to blend in, everything was all designed for everybody else, and you just got to kind of fight through without any support. Now, I got ADHD when I was about 6 years old. It was hard work getting to sleep. It was almost like I was bouncing off the walls, all the energy in the brain, and couldn't go to sleep and couldn't relax and couldn't do anything. So the first condition I had diagnosed was ADHD, and they called it hyperactivity in those days because there was no such thing as ADHD as we know. And so the doctor says, right, so diaphragm, or I think it's Valium that they called it then. Of course, they changed the name of the drug now. And of course, having that as a strong drug, I was only 6 years old, and it took 3 hours to walk 4 streets home from school. And so consequently, being on that drug lasted about a week, and that was it. It was taken straight off it. But that's what life was like in the 1970s for kids. And when you're dealing with that kind of era, you're dealing with something that's, oh, someone's different, plonk them on a drug, see how they take it, and if it doesn't work, then take it back off again. So that's how it works. I had to cope through school with ADHD. I learned that it was a sort of ADHD called combined ADHD, which means that there's periods where there's no attention, and there's also periods where there's impulsive action. And they got both of those in a combined ADHD, which I'll be talking about in the videos on here to do with ADHD now. I wasn't diagnosed with autism until many years later, and that was before I went to university. So I was out trying to do exams and GCSEs, failed all of them, went straight on the dole. So I was on the dole as soon as I left school, and then in part-time dead-end jobs from then on up. I had about 10 of them. So from that point, you get bullied at work, you get bullied at school, you get bullied everywhere you go, you get used to being bullied. So by the time I learned to drive, you get used to that. I was very fortunate to have one of the most patient driving instructors I've ever seen. And it was only thanks to having a lovely instructor like that that I managed to pass the driving test at all, because your self-esteem's gone, you see, everything's in a state. You don't think you can do anything. The first qualification I ever had in my life was my driving license. Very, very pleased with that. The anniversary of my driving test is October 7th, and October 7th is always celebrated here as the Festival of the Driving Test. Some people on the autism spectrum have got routines where they have things one year to the next, and you always think of the driving test on that date, and this year it'll be well, it's getting on a bit. It's nearly 40 years, 39 years now. So basically, what you're doing is thinking of us ADHD people. So 40% of ADHD people have got autism as well. That's what happened to me. I was diagnosed with autism when I was 14. And so I got 6 years old, ADHD, 40 years old, autism. Nothing else yet, not yet. And then was able to get to university through one of the adult education classes. Because I got no qualifications at all, they did classes for adults part-time. So I started off doing the adult education classes, got the qualifications needed to go in, went in, took a foundation degree, passed that, and I thought, I enjoy this, I'm going to do some more. This adult education course was on foundation degree, and it was doing charity management, which I thought was very useful for special needs people. And then after that, it was part-time for adults. That's adult education, just to get some qualifications, just to be able to establish for a full degree. And I loved it so much, I joined the Open University to take the BA honours with them. So I was technically doing 2 degrees at once. And then the Open University said to me, you're doing too many credits. This is over the phone, says you're taking too many credits at once, because for those who don't know degrees run, they have, I think, 180 credits a year. And if you take any more than that, that's classed as over full-time and you get into trouble. So what happened was I think it's 360 for a full, is it? 120, 120, 120? Works like that. Not quite certain if it works, but I think it's 120 a year. But I know Masters is definitely 180 because you have to do a dissertation as well. So, foundation degree first, then the bachelor's, then the Masters. And it got so far as a foundation degree because it was a long drawn out part-time course overlapped with when the Masters started. So I ended up doing 2 degrees at once, and the Open University says to me, 180, that's too many credits. 120 is what you take a year. You don't take any more than that. And I said to them, do you have my records on your computers right now? And they says, yes, we do. I says, right, I've got 2 questions for you. First of all, has all the work been up to standard that you've received from me so far? And they says, yes, it has. And I said to them, right, have any of my assignments ever been late? And they says, no, they haven't. I said, well, get off this line and bother somebody else. So they made them put the phone down. They didn't bother me again. They didn't bother me again. They just let me do what I wanted to. So I was at 2 universities together, and neither one knew about the other one, otherwise would have shut me down. So this is how I managed to do 4 degrees in 8 years. The same 8 years. When I first started up in when I was 40, that was 2008 academic year, and finished in 2014's academic year, and then graduated with a PhD in the 2015 graduation. So that's how I got 4 degrees in 8 years. So I got a foundation degree, bachelor's, master's, doctorate. So at that point, it's very important to know, because I always tell people when they moan about the GCSE and they moan about the A-level results and they're worried sick, and I say, no, I left school and went straight on the dole. And if I left school and went straight on the dole, having autism and ADHD, which were diagnosed at that point, and then wanted to go to uni, there's always another way. There's always a back door of the house as well as a front door. Just because everybody else that goes in by the front doesn't mean there's nobody getting in by the back. There are other ways to get to university. So if you don't do well at school, don't worry about it, because there's still a chance for you. You can still succeed, you see. So then I got diagnosed with a dyslexia, dyspraxia, and dyscalculia when I was at uni. And that was the lecturer at the master's degree assignments noticing there was something wrong with the assignments, the way they were run. He saw something. And he had me transferred into the special needs department where they ran initial tests on their computers. And after that, I also had tests run, which lasted a whole day by a very, very highly qualified educational psychologist who tested absolutely everything. And they found those 3 conditions. So then I was found to have ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and dyscalculia. Now, what they found after that is because I had problems in the class with the studies, they had diagnosed it again and found there was Irlen syndrome on the top. And all of these conditions I'm speaking about, there'll be videos in these presentations in this collection which will help you. So if you come across these terms with your pupils, there'll be assistance, don't worry. So now, of course, there's ADHD. Yes, there is autism. Yep. Dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, and dyscalculia Irlen syndrome. So you're getting quite a collection. Yep. Because I was at the front when they dealt these things out. And so, of course, you've got absolutely shocking handwriting because that's dysgraphia. And you do find people with dysgraphia, which is a condition in which the writing is either illegible or can't read writing too well. I've got that as well. So I've got 7. I have 7 of the neurodiverse conditions. When you're studying neurodiversity, you'll know that if the person's got 1 condition, they're 70% likely to have 2. And that person also is 40% likely to have 3 or more. So when somebody comes to you, you're a driving instructor, and they say to you, I have autism, I have ADHD, you look for the things as well. Because I'll be dealing with what they call comorbid conditions, a horrible word. I call it coexisting. It's better, but the medical world doesn't recognize the term. But nonetheless, always look for the conditions on top of the condition they say they've got. They've got a dominant condition, and there's other conditions lurking underneath. Neurodiversity is a big umbrella. That's what neurodiversity is. From that point, remember that all the time I was at university, doing all these degrees, I was still running my driving school at the same time. because the driving school started in 2006, and then I went to university in 2008. So all the time I was running these degrees, I was also running the driving school as well. Now then, when I was in the last year of PhD, our university, one of them, did something different, and they decided to measure brain speeds. And they were thinking, we're going to get graduates and postgraduates, neurodiverse and neurotypical. And one of them, there was a student doing a doctorate in this kind of thing, wanting to know all about how fast the brain was working. And so he says, what we're going to do, we're going to pick several people of a certain academic level in this university for the testing. Some will be neurodiverse, some will be neurotypical. We're going to compare the brains. Now, I was one of those chosen. And when I was chosen, I was led to this great big underground, big basement thing that was kitted out like a sci-fi centre. You wouldn't believe it. Machines all over the place. And I ended up being wired up to this computer. And have all the wires in and headphones on and everything. And they tested everything. I'd never been through a test in my life. It's absolutely draining and nearly killed me off. But what they found is that when they measured my brain speed, it was 6 times as fast as the everyday learners, which basically means that you can get 6 days worth of learning into one day, which therefore accounts for me being able to run my driving school and run these degrees at the same time. So I was able to take 2 degrees at once and then do my driving school on top. It was the brain speed allowing me to do that. I managed to get into Mensa, the High IQ Society. Proven IQ of 152. Very pleased to get in there. And then later on in 2011, I got an MBE from the late Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. She was a wonderful, wonderful lady. Her smile just lit the room. And she just says to me, "You're a driving instructor." And I says, "Yes, Majesty, you know how you do." And the question she has to say, "Yes, ma'am, there's a special way to communicate." We all taught that in the palace. But the smell at the room, and I forgot completely where I was. The cameras trained on me. There was DVDs being taped. There was 400 people in that room. And all I could see was that smile. And that is in my head forever. You can't get that smile out of this head. Whatever the royals are doing nowadays, that doesn't matter. That queen was like a grandma who had not seen a granddaughter for 20 years, and the granddaughter arrived on the doorstep. Wow, you imagine her face when she opens that door. And that's exactly how she was to me, and she didn't even know who I was until she read all the records that I've been doing. I'll never forget that day in my life. I've got it on DVD, I've got it taped. But that was the ultimate, that was to get an MBE from the late, great Queen Elizabeth. Since then, life has had its ups and downs. I got made homeless in 2018, spent 3 months on the road, left everything behind, lost my possessions, lost my house, lost everything, even my hometown, and had to set up in a derelict house in another town, which is where I am now. 18 months after we arrived in here, the pandemic hit us, and that was when everything stopped because I had to drive to another town, do my lessons, and then drive all the way back, and that all stopped. And that was when I started to work online. I didn't even know anything online. I want to say thanks for everybody who taught me how to use everything, because I didn't know a thing about how to use the internet. Very grateful to Josh and everybody else who's taught me everything I have at the moment, put in here about the internet and how it works, how to get online, how to communicate. It is fantastic work. That means people all over the country now have access to me through the services I provide, and that is why these tapes are being produced, so everybody has a chance to be able to learn. So that's where I am now, still studying. I'm still designing courses. I've designed a big file for driving instructors at the moment. It might be for sale on this site. And I wish you all the best with your training. Remember, I'm here for you always. There's always new videos being loaded up here. And I wish you all the best of success with teaching neurodiverse people like me. Well done.